Hey guys! Alright, finally making this video response to the janitor, or the one janitor. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, but I'll put a link to his channel here if you want to check it out. He's made some, what seems to be sincere questions to Christians, and I think that's worth our time giving some thought-out responses to, so I'll give it my best shot to answer those. And I'm not going to be responding to the entire video, because I don't actually disagree with everything that he said, but for the parts that I feel like I can contribute something, I'll throw my 2 cents in. So let's go ahead and take a look at what he has to say.
What is it about religion that makes you okay with suspending everything you otherwise believe to be true about the universe? What is it that makes you believe that in this case only it's possible for an all-powerful, invisible, sentient, superior being to exist? Now I say this on the assumption that an invisible, sentient being who's omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient is illogical and scientifically invalid. So if you disagree with that, then please tell me why.
Alright, so there's our first point of disagreement. I don't think that the Christian God is illogical or scientifically invalid. But luckily for me, you're going to give some arguments as to why you think that's the case, and I'll chime in as to what I think about those.
So have omnipotence, the power to do anything. That would include building a wall that's indestructible, and that would also include destroying that wall. That's an inherent logical contradiction that can't exist.
Alright, so I think we actually have some common ground here, believe it or not. The point of your argument is to show that God is illogical. One of his properties are illogical. And that would show that God can't exist. So what we agree on here is that something illogical can't exist.
And if we're using science and logic, then I'd say it's pretty simple to prove that God doesn't exist, or at least to prove that he can't exist.
Something that is illogical is nonsensical and non-existent. It's not really a thing. So we agree on that much, I believe. So starting from there, how people usually phrase the argument you've given is that they say, can God make a rock so big that he can't lift it? And to those kind of people, I would say that question ultimately boils down to saying, can God lift something unliftable? But you seem to already realize this. I think you phrase it, I can't remember the exact terms off the top of my head, but it was either God can build something unbuildable or break something unbreakable. I don't remember which one you went with. But you seem to be realizing that that is a nonsensical notion. That is a logical contradiction. And if any theist was saying that God could do something logically contradictory, then that would be an absurd notion, right? Alright, so you define omnipotence as the ability to do anything. But then you give this example of a logical contradiction, something that you and I both agree is not a thing. In order to show that the phrase, God can do anything, is false, you'd have to show me something that he couldn't do. But the example you're giving is not a thing, right? It's a illogical, nonsensical idea. So if that makes sense to you, that's all good. But if not, I'm going to try and phrase it one other way. When a Christian says, I'll speak for myself. When I say that omnipotence is the ability to do anything, I mean omnipotence is the ability to do any doable thing. So it doesn't even cross my mind that people will be thinking about doing logically contradictory things. If you were to say omnipotence includes the ability to do the logically contradictory, then you'd simply be using a different definition of omnipotence than I would be using. So if you're using a different definition for the same word that I'm using, then we would end up talking past each other. The deity you'd be critiquing is not the deity I'd be believing in, and the deity I'd be defending is not the deity you'd be critiquing. So we have to be on the same term as far as definitions go, and I think that's going to actually be a problem in your next critique.
Omnipresence is pretty easy. I'm here, I can't also be over there. As far as I know, there's nothing that can occupy more than one space at the exact same time, much less all spaces at all times.
So omnipresence is a tricky idea. I remember having very similar thoughts about it to the ones you're having now. But I think ultimately, if you come to the conclusion that omnipresence means that God is in my water bottle and in my sock or in my pocket right now, that you have the wrong understanding of omnipresence. God is not a tangible earthly being, so to think of it at omnipresence as referring to a tangible earthly presence, I think is not the best way to think about it. So you know how you can be in a conversation, but you can be elsewhere mentally? They might say you're absent-minded. That's the kind of presence I think is being talked about when it refers to God. How you can be present in the room yet absent-minded is to say that you are not conscious of your surroundings at the moment. So I think that's what it's saying is that God is conscious of, or always aware of, his surroundings. Not that he's physically manifest within every molecule or atom in the universe or something of that nature. So yeah, again, I think this just boils down to a difference in definition. The understanding of the term that you have, the property you think God has, and the property the Christian's trying to describe are different. So when you critique that deity, we end up talking past each other.
Now, omniscience is a little tricky because people think of it in different ways, but it's usually defined as all possible knowledge, having all possible knowledge. Presumably that would include the knowledge of how to create reality, but how can a being know how to create reality when reality is required beforehand for that being to even exist? It doesn't make sense.
Alright, so I found your objections to omniscience, or the ability to know everything, a bit more confusing. So to start off with, you had said that God would have to know how to create reality before reality existed. So just to clarify, omniscience is about knowing things, not about when he knows them. And second of all, I think this is the more important of the objections. I think we can all agree that Christians believe God is real, right? And out of all the arguments that try and argue for God's existence, let's go with the oldest one I can think of, the unmoved mover. That would entail that God is not created, right? This is a pretty common theme among Christianity to think of God as an uncreated being. So if God is real and is uncreated or has always existed, then reality has always existed, and that means nobody's been arguing that God created reality. Christians might argue that God created the physical world, but not arguing that he created reality. So I think the contradiction you're trying to draw is missing the mark again a little bit. So lastly, you had said that the Christian God is contradictory to science, but you didn't actually explain how you thought that was the case. Obviously I disagree with that, but I'm not exactly sure what you were arguing. I was assuming it's something about evolution. So I guess we can't get into that too much. I don't know your actual position. But if anybody wants to bring that up in the comment section, if you happen to agree with him, that might be a good topic I'll make some future videos about. And you guys really should go check out his video. I mean, the rest of it is absolutely awesome. So again, link to his channel in the description. And as always, test everything. Hold on to the good.